Tired of negative content that brings you and your algorithm down, ruining your day? Don't be that guy. Level up your screen time. Welcome to 216 Creator Studios. We are fun, funny, informational, educational, entertaining, motivating, and we are here for your listening and viewing pleasure. Make sure you check out The Grounds. Every Friday morning, we live stream at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Kent, Drew, Scott, Steve, and Kelsey will make you laugh, cry, and learn something new. Or how about Let's Talk Local, a community podcast spotlighting local businesses and events and the stories of how and why they do what they do. Or how about Around the Piano, where Tim Paul and Drew Cappuccino interview new, talented musicians as well as some of the great titans of the music industry. And if none of that strikes your fancy, how about one of my personal favorites, The Stories of the Paranow. Watch as Seabass, and myself research, react, and judge some of the craziest paranormal articles and videos that we can find on the net. And if none of those strike your fancy, we have so many other shows to watch, and we're bringing new ones in all the time. So go to YouTube, 216 Creator Studios, hit that live tab, hit that like button, that share button, that comment button, that subscribe button, ring that bell so that you never miss an episode. Our shows are broadcast on youtube.com/@216thenet/streams. Find us, follow us, and get inspired today. 216 Creator Studios, content that moves you forward.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Roger That Chronicles. It's been a minute since we've done an episode. Chris is out there flying around, having grandbabies and all kinds of stuff. So excited about being back, though. And listen, if you like what you see here, make sure you go to YouTube, 216 Creator Studios. Like, share, subscribe. Ding that bell for that future notification. We're always appreciating your support. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be back. It has been a little while, and we've got new seasons. It's like the cool weather's coming in. Yeah. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a little candy coated. So when it's 90 some odd degrees out there, cappuccino isn't doing good. This is my season. Pumpkin season is my season. So I'm excited about that. And the boys are back in town. Look at that. The boys are back in town. You don't want me to sing it. Nobody wants me to sing it. We just lost three followers. So welcome back, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And then Chris, what are we talking about today?
You know what? I think we're just going to hear some stories and some moments. That's the clean version.
Oh, nice.
And maybe get some tips from the veterans we've got on the show here today.
I love it.
Yeah, we've got 2 Army veterans. We've got Josh over here, and we've got Mike over here. So, you know what? I'll just go ahead and start with Josh and let you introduce yourself, your branch, and why you started.
All right. My name is Josh. I am an Army veteran. I served 6.5 years, and during that time I went to Iraq, and I also went to Korea. When I got out of the military, I kind of floated around the United States trying to look for a place where I kind of landed, and the Midwest kept on draw me back. It's like a glue that just sticks and
Keeps pulling you back.
you just keep on coming.
It's
So
like
I
the mafia.
So yeah, so I came back to Illinois and started my life looking to do landscaping and stuff like that. But due to circumstances, I found myself looking for another job or a different job that was less impactful on my body, and found Veterans Path to Hope and became a peer support specialist. And then became a case manager for a program that is for the word that we can't use.
Yep.
It's a prevention program, and yeah, just been running ever since. Became the commander of the Crystal Lake VFW with Mike and a couple of other veterans. We started a gaming program, and we cultivated a community that of veterans that wanted to be more active. So we started doing Fridays hikes, and we've been going from there.
Good for you. Good for
Thank you.
It's a lot.
And it's just amazing all this stuff that you are doing now after you got over that little hurdle,
Yeah, well, coming into the community, I seen that we had veterans that wanted to be doing things, and we had veterans with families, and the local posts, they do a lot of stuff, and we just wanted to add to that. And something that came from the veterans was doing a veteran hike, very short, mild, more on the mental health exercise rather than exercise itself. Chris, you've been out to one.
Yes.
Mike, you're the star of September's. So I mean,
logo.
it's been so I did these Easter eggs in the flyers that I make, and one of our first year doing the hikes, Mike did this picture where he posed with the American flag and he was looking back like that, like I want you. So I was like, we're gonna Easter egg this into these flyers because I think it's a pretty impactful picture. So yeah, and being surrounded by other veterans, creating a community, and networking with other organizations is something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, when the veterans come home, they need to be connected somewhere.
Absolutely.
They're like scattered back all over the United States, and they have to it's like a brand new society, a brand new group of friends, because it's all different.
Well, I mean, you look at the statistics of wars before Iraq and Afghanistan. You look at World War II. There was a huge population that was a part of that war. Even on the home front side, a lot of people, a lot of things went to the war effort rather than at home efforts. And then you look at Vietnam, 17% of the population was a part of that war. And then you look now, 6% of the population had served their country at one given time, with 1% of that population that have served overseas at a certain capacity. So when you come home, it's no longer, you're not coming home to neighbors that got drafted or your friends from high school that went to the same unit as you. You're coming home and some of your friends don't know the journey that you've been on. It's kind of hard to discuss certain things with them. But with being around other veterans, it's easier to talk about certain aspects of war rather than with a civilian counterpart. It's kind of nice to have that network of being able to talk to Mike and be like, hey man, we went through this, and kind of hear what his story was, or other veterans' stories. And so it definitely, you don't feel like the only one in the room anymore.
Yeah.
And we've created a huge community of and continue to grow that community.
Yeah, for sure. I see that a lot as well. Just I think our community is just really close knit with the veterans.
Oh yeah.
And all the organizations work together, and the main point is to reach and help other veterans.
Well, especially in McHenry County, we have like a lot of veteran support here, from the VAC to the posts, the VFW American Legion, Lions Club, the Moose Clubs, you have Veterans Network Committee that does the honor flights, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to give back to those veterans that didn't necessarily feel welcomed when they came back, and then they go on this honor flight, and then they come back, and you just see them in a different. They have a different light about them, and so it's really amazing. Just over this last weekend, there was an honor flight that came back on Sunday. So they did this big thing and at the McHenry High School, where there had to have been 60 motorcycles that brought in, and they had first responders, police escort. I think I seen an ambulance in the escort as well. So it was really phenomenal to see, the community come together and be able to put something on like that.
Yeah, sure, for sure. It takes a village, isn't that what they say?
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it takes two. When it comes to veterans and civilians, I want to circle back a little bit just because you said something that really interested me. So, Joe goes away for 4 years. He goes off to war, right? He's in the military, comes home and sees his friends from high school or whatnot. And they're still living that every day. How it was doesn't seem to have changed.
Right.
But Joe came back different.
Yeah.
Right. And so how to communicate back with civilization is a tough pull. That's why the organization that you guys are in help them transition back to that, give them the help they need to say, hey, listen, you're not the only one. I think that's big, because not being the only one when you feel so alone is the hard part. And then even people on the civilian side, even people that are against all of it, war, the military, they still support it.
Yeah.
Because you come back and you got the parades, you got the escorts to flights. I think that those are important, because I don't care if you worked at the galley. I don't care if you were just the shoelace tire in the military. You sacrificed the time from your life to go do something that's beneficial to everybody else. Now, listen, not everybody wants to go to Iraq. They sign up. You told a story last time you were here where you were like, yeah, I signed up, and guess where I'm going right off the bat, right? Yeah. Bad things happened. And so, but you did it. You still did it. You stand tall for what you did and what you had to do. And obviously, coming back was a transitional period for both of you. I know there was probably some really big hurdles that you both had to jump over.
Yeah. 100%. I think it's people forget, like, veterans aren't these old guys. Like, guys are getting out younger and younger every day. I had a guy come in a couple weeks ago, 22 years old. Like, he's a veteran. As much as he, you know what I mean? He thinks he knows what's going on. He's changed. He doesn't even realize he's changed yet, because he's gone from parents raising him in high school, you know what I mean? Straight from high school to the military. So he's never really been on his own. Yeah. And he's doing this now, like I said. And one of the biggest things I want to do, and Josh is on the same page, is where we want to get these guys the resources and find their community a lot quicker. Because I don't want them to, I don't want to have them wait till they're older, you know what I mean, to start feeling appreciated for what they did, because they're suffering early on, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden we look at our elders, you know what I mean, and they're like, oh, we treat them nicer once they're older, but then like everything that they've been through since their time when they've gotten out, you know what I mean, is impacted their lives and their families, and they're still suffering. They may not be physically in a war, but mentally they're still fighting a battle.
Yeah.
And them actually being able to find those resources a lot quicker is important. It took me 15 years before I got out that I knew a lot of these organizations existed. And it had a big impact on my life. It messed up a lot of relationships that I had, but it's one of my biggest things now is bridging that gap from the time these younger veterans are able to go out and find these resources, find their community, find out things that make them feel like they're still a part of something, because you miss that camaraderie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's important.
Your program.
Yep.
You know.
Well, I'm Mike Pace. I'm an Army veteran. I got smart. I only signed up for 3 years. It was like the minimum amount of time that they allowed me to do, which was, smart on my end, I feel like, because if I enjoyed it, I was able to, to re-up. So I enlisted in August of 2021, or 2001. I said 21, 2001. And it was 2 weeks before 9/11 happened. So it was a pretty interesting time. I wasn't one of the guys that, and it was a lot then during that time where when 9/11 happened, the recruiting numbers went skyrocketing. You know what I mean? Like they went skyrocketing. And I did it right before 9/11. So it was a little bit different. And it was, it was an old moment for me, almost immediately, just because I didn't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've had family members who've served in the military. But for me, I was the first one that I can think of besides my great grandfather who went to the Army. So I didn't really know much, you know what I mean? So it was something that was brand new for me, but it was encouraged for me to do it. Why I joined, was more of a reason to try to find something to do. I had friends that were getting in trouble, you know what I mean? And I could either follow down their path of just, destruction, or I could have went this other way, like I said, where most of my family has gone, you know what I mean? I had a stepfather who was a Marine. My uncles, I had a bunch of uncles who were in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Army. So it was something that was,
Expected.
it was not necessarily expected. You know what I mean? I expected to be in the NBA. That was my expectations. If I'm just being honest, like that was what I pushed. Didn't work out that way, but it wasn't expected. It wasn't even pushed for me to do that. It wasn't talked about. You know what I mean? It really wasn't. Like I would see Uncle Randy come in every now and again, and see him in this white Navy, you know what I mean? And it was just like, what you got on? Like, I didn't understand it, but it was different for them because they didn't really talk about things. They didn't, you know what I mean? Even
Yes.
my grandfather, where he didn't talk about it. And I would love to have those conversations with him now, because then I will be able to kind of know exactly what he experienced. I see it with Josh. I see it with Josh and his grandfather, and I'm in all of it. I'm not gonna lie. Like just last week, we were at a dinner, and they were sitting there together. Before Josh got there, I was picking his brain. You know what I mean? Because I find that stuff fascinating. Because once you're younger, you're not. You don't care about those things. You know what I mean? As much as you think you do, you're not very interested in them at that age. So for me, like I said, it wasn't pushed, but it was still like, hey, well, you ain't doing nothing. You go down and talk to this recruiter. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it was. And once I got down there, the recruiter's name he was a corporal, but he was supposed to be a sergeant, but his name was Corporal Money. Never met anybody with that name since. Money, like Money was his name. And I was like, there's a sign. So I ended up doing it, like I said, and obviously went over to Iraq, and just a different experience. I didn't sign up for that. You know what I mean? I signed up to not be a knucklehead and go to jail like some of my friends. But once 9/11 happened, throughout that day, like I said, it was like, you know what? You're doing this no matter what. I made that decision for me. Like, it was the first time in my life that I sat back and I really, really was like, you know what? This is what it is. No matter what happens, you're sticking with this decision. No matter what. You know what I mean? Who knows if I could have what got out of it? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I didn't care because, like I said, as that day went on, and I think most of us did that day, 9/11. Like, we felt that was the most patriotic you probably ever felt for me in my lifetime, where we went out there and it was like, I have to do something. I remember going on the front porch and putting the flag up. You know what I mean? It was the first time I ever did anything like that. But I was like, this is what you signed up for, and this is what you're going to do. People around me didn't really know, you know what I mean? As much as they did, everybody thought it was just, yeah, you're going, whatever. You probably won't end up going. But I never got so much support. Like I said, I didn't tell any of my friends I was doing this. I did it on my own. And then once I did, my mom had like a going away party, and they were all mad at me. They literally, they were mad. They were not because I was going, because I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them because they were like, well, you should have told me. We'd have went together. You know what I mean? And I said at the moment, it was the first time I made a decision for me
Yeah.
in my life that I said, no matter what, I'm sticking with it. So
Why did you pick Army?
there's no way I was doing the Marines. There was no way. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. Like, in the Air Force, the Air Force, I didn't know too much about. I don't think I wasn't a dummy. You know what I mean? But I wasn't book smart, you know what I'm saying, back then, and doing all of that stuff. And then the Navy, like I said, my Uncle Randy used to come home in those white suits, and I just couldn't see myself wearing one of those.
Bottoms for
Yeah, like I couldn't see it. It just didn't. So the Army, the Army, when I went to the recruiter station, I went with my stepfather, and he was a Marine, and that's where we were going. Like, he was dead set on pushing the Marines on me. And we went in, and it was the one in Dundee or Carpentersville or wherever it was at. We got in there, and once we got in, we went to the Marine guy, but he wasn't there. So we ended up going on the way out. We stopped an Army guy. So, like I said, once I got there and I saw the Sergeant Money, I was like, all right, Corporal Money, let's do it. You know what I mean? So took the ASVAB. I think it was a practice one they let you do right then and there. I did that, and from there, that was why. But I don't know. The Army, I think growing up as a kid and just playing Army, you know what I mean? It was just one of those things that kind of stuck. And a lot of it, I always tell people, I just feel like it was destiny. Like, as much as I picked it, it picked me. So.
Yeah, there's a branch for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And you just kind of fall into that.
Yeah.
Into that area.
Yep.
To what suits you best, and
Yep.
and you can't let it's great because you have family members that are in military and they're trying to direct you exactly to what they did. I was waiting for you to be like, well, the Army was on the left, the Marines were on the right. I made a hard left as soon as we walked in the building. It was like, this is what I'm doing. The friends, when you tell your friends, and I love the way you put it. You put the flag out. You saw this as somebody just invaded my house and you're not going to stand for it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And I love the united front to where everybody as a civilian on that day was like, you know what? No, we're not going to, even Bush got out there.
Yeah.
We're going to go. We're going to do some shit, right? And then we did all that stuff, right? You guys were out there doing all that stuff. And then the civilian life, while you guys were battling it, they were back to flicking each other off in traffic. Unitedness kind of dialed down a little bit because we were back into our own set zones, right?
Yep.
Your friends got mad at you because you didn't tell them because they wanted to work alongside you.
Yep.
But I absolutely love how you put it. You're like, yeah, if that would have been like the team, but I did this for me and nobody else but me. If you want to go
sign
office is down the way.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Did any of them sign up?
Not then. I had one that he did about a year or so after I had already been in, and he was kind of going through the same thing. You know what I mean? He was like, he was trying to find his way, and it was just being a young kid. Like I said, you don't know, you know what I mean?
Right.
We have all these dreams, and and reality hits, and it's, what am I going to do? So he came to me, he asked me, you know what I mean? And I was like, look, bro, if you're not doing nothing, I said, it's not a bad thing. I said, that's just how it was. And he ended up going, I think he did more years than I did. You know what I mean? He saw some combat and all of that. Still friends to this day, like I said, but it was just having that conversation and being honest. Like, I think that was the biggest thing for him, is actually getting somebody that he knew real opinion on it. You know what I mean? Because they had been there. I had been there and I had seen some of the things, you know what I mean? And could say, yeah, it can be dangerous. Like, you're probably going to end up going overseas. Like, it will be dangerous. But me knowing who he was, or who he is, and knowing, like, just pay attention to details. You know what I mean? We grew up, it was a friend of mine. Like I said, he was also on my basketball team. So it was just one of those things where we took that, and I related it to sports for him. You're competitive, you know what I mean? You're going to compete. You pay attention to details. You do all of these things. You'll be fine. You know what I mean? But there's still, you have to let them know, there's still that chance something can happen. You know what I mean? Like, are you willing to take that chance? Yes. You know what I mean? And for him, he did. And like I said, now he's still in Colorado. You know what I mean? He's living his best life. He does different things, but it was one of the ones that I know, that one of my friends that ended up going. It wasn't during that same time, but yeah, that was it. A couple other guys that maybe weren't as close of friends, but Damian was the only other. Actually, it was another guy too, Joe. But I want to find Joe. Joe Geyer. Joe stayed down the street from me. And I think Joe almost retired, did like 20 years. But I never could find him. You know what I mean? Once he got in, I never was able to find him. And I still don't know where he's at, but he was another one. So it was us three. We all kind of went at different times. But other than that, all the rest of my friends just either went to jail or had 10 kids and did all the other things that, you know what I'm saying, that they didn't know they were doing at the time. So, yeah. What about you, though, Josh? What was because I don't think you've ever told me why. What was the reason? Because it was different for me. Like I said, I did it before 9/11. So right before 9/11. Was 9/11 the reason why you decided to join? Was that? Okay.
So when I was a kid, I envied the uniforms. I always thought the Marine Corps uniform looked really sharp. My grandfather, he was a Marine, and we got to see a lot of veteran. I got to see a lot of different veterans. I grew up helping friends that were doing their Boy Scout, Eagle Scout stuff, and I'd be spending time at the VFW as a kid. So I had a little bit of knowledge of like the military aspect, and I was like, that's what I want. I want to be in the military. That I watched the John Wayne movies, the Clint Eastwood movies, war movies about, World War II, and seeing these men that even in the movies they tried depicting that they were going over there as these innocent kids, and then they were coming home as men and honor and all these things, and I was like, that's what I want to feel. And so that, growing up in Carpentersville, I tried going to college again, being very young. Graduated high school early, and I was like, oh, I'll try college. Went there with not a chip on my shoulder, but if this doesn't work, I always have, another plan. Didn't like college that much. I didn't. Schooling, I was done with schooling for that time being, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go into the military. When I went to Carpentersville, right over by Spring Hill Mall.
Yeah, that's where I went.
And the Air Force door was closed. The Navy door was open. I had a lot of friends going into the Navy, and I was like, oh, maybe that. But then the Army, I don't know. I talked to the Army recruiter. He was telling me about the things that he had been through. And I was like, man, that seems interesting. Going over to other countries. I've always liked and I've always liked nature and stuff like that. So being able to see different things of that nature had always been like, yeah, that would be amazing. As a kid, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Then, growing up, I was like, maybe not so much a Navy SEAL anymore. My dad when I was growing up, he had a boat. And I'd get too far away from, land, I'd start getting seasick. And so I was like, well, maybe not for me. And then my grandfather, he always talked about being on ships too as a Marine. I was like, the Marines are on the ground. Um, so I was like, no, I don't want to do any of that. Went to the Army. Now I had the option of doing different things. But I first went in there because there was one of my teachers, a welding teacher, probably the most phenomenal welder I've ever seen. Now I'm only 38, so there's a lot of great welders out there, but this was the welder that I seen that was really good and taught me how to just do a roll of dimes.
Wait. You're only 38?
Yeah.
I think you're older than. I'm sorry. I thought you were much older. Never mind. Go ahead. Continue.
So he taught me how to do a roll of dimes with an arc weld, and then he taught me how to oxyacetylene weld, and I really liked it. So I went into go to MEPS, and I was like, I want to be a tank welder, and they're like, that's full next, and I was like, that was the only thing I had in mind. And I was like, how about MP? Because my grandfather was an MP, and they're like, that's full next. And I was like, They're like, let me show you a couple of jobs. They showed me Cav Scout. I was like, nah, I know about your dirty tricks with these videos. Cav Scouts aren't rolling around in ATVs out overseas. Get out of here. And they showed me a couple of other things, and nothing really stuck. So, but I seen infantry, and it brought me back to John Wayne movies and World War II. Him being on the one of the movies that I could remember was him being on in Japan, being on the sand and somebody yelling out his name, Joe, Joe, and just that movie came to mind when I thought, oh, I want to be infantry. So then they showed me the infantry video, and then I got into the infantry, and that was my oh shoot moment.
Yeah.
It was like, oh no, what did I really just sign up for? But the camaraderie in the infantry was a lot different. I mean, of course you're gonna butt heads with a lot of people, but at the end of the day, you're brothers.
Yeah.
And you go out on that battlefield and knowing that you have people watching your six, it was a good feeling. It was.
Oh, you're right. I think it was like when I was in it, the infantry looked at it as like, oh, they're just, they don't do anything. But once it's time to go over there and
get busy.
Yeah, get busy. Like they're the first one. So then that's when they're the most respected. Other than that, it's just like they're the troublemakers. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones that go out and they raise hell and they do all of this stuff when you're in garrison. But as soon as you go, you know what I mean, to the field or to Iraq or wherever they may go to, they're the first ones in, you know what I mean? And they're usually the last ones out. So
it's like that Peter Pan movie, The Lost Boys on the island.
Yeah.
That's what I looked at as the infantry. Like, we're scaling off of third-story buildings. Like, oh, we're going to do all this fun. It was a lot of fun.
They got me the same way. I didn't do infantry. I was a 12 Bravo combat engineer. And they left out the combat part. Like I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't.
You're an
I didn't know.
engineer.
Yeah, you're an engineer, and I'm like, that's literally what I was thinking. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like, oh yeah. So what you gonna be doing? I'm gonna be an engineer. Like I'm going around telling everybody, my friends, to know, dang, you gonna be an engineer? Yeah, I'm gonna be an engineer. Like so, thinking engineer. I'm gonna be doing all this cool stuff, building whatever. You know what I mean? I got to basic, and it was not the engineer that I thought it was going to be. I'll tell you that. We get there and they have like the reception or whatever it's called once before you actually go to your boot camp. And they're going down the list of everybody who goes to Fort Leonard Wood for boot camp. A lot of MPs, I believe they went to Fort Leonard Wood. Yeah, but then they said the engineers, where are my engineers? And it's a bunch of us. We're raising our hands, and they're like, yeah, me. It's like, I bet they didn't tell y'all dumbasses that y'all will be the first ones. Y'all have the lowest life expectancy. And I'm like, he's talking about like he's messing with us. He was like, no, I bet they didn't tell you be going through minefields either, did they? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, y'all be riding around with bombs in y'all vehicles and everything else too, right? Had no idea, bro. And that was another one of those old moments, you know what I mean? Where it was like, oh, so yeah, but no, I find it interesting for you though. And I don't mean to like take over, but how was it for you? Because your son joined, right?
Yes.
So when he joined, what was that like for you? What was your reasoning? Did you meet? Did he come to you already doing it, or was it discussed beforehand? Because, like I said, for me, my stepdad was like, "You're going. This is what we're doing." Was it like that for him as well, or
No, he came to us and he was like, "Yeah, I think I want to join the military." And so I've always been supportive of the military. So I'm like, okay, cool. They've got lots of jobs out there you can do. And then he's like, yeah, I want to go into the Marine Corps. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool one. And, he was back and forth with his recruiter. And I was like looking up because the recruiter was saying, oh, yeah, he can do this. He's the perfect height and build for this, And I'm like, that'd be cool. And you can travel the world, Now I want to do infantry. I'm like, no, you don't want to do infantry. You do not know what that means. And he went and signed up for it.
was it scary for you though? Was it like because I hear stories like for some people where they're just like, I will never let my son, you know what I mean? Like for me, it wasn't pushed, but it was like, you gotta do something, you know what I mean? But it was different. But as a parent, I'm thinking, because I'm a parent now, right?
Yeah.
How would I, and we've had this talk before where we said, will we let our kids join? And I'm like, for me, understanding what I know now, you know what I mean? I would definitely have the conversation with my son or my daughters, you know what I mean, to let them know. But I don't think their moms will. I think their moms would be like, hell no, they're not joining the military. So
yeah, so he went into the delayed entry program. So he was property of the government while he was still in high school for that last year.
Okay.
And there was another kid that he signed up together, not together with, but like at the same time. And so what the Marine Corps does is they put you with buddies.
Yep, battle buddy.
Before you even go, And so he had this buddy. Well, his mom, I know she did this because she did not want him to go. She totally sabotaged everything for him. It was like, oh no, he broke his arm, so now I can't. Oh, this, oh, that, And I was like, I thought that was wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, it's not my life, it's his life.
Yeah.
And if this is something that he wants to do, I need to be supportive of him, no matter what he's doing, you know? And so I kind of saw that and I was like, don't be like that.
Yeah.
And I think really the only time I was really
what was your old moment?
Yeah, when he was deployed.
Yeah.
He was deployed. So it was like he went off to boot camp and it was like, okay, but I was that mommy. It was like, oh, he's coming home. So I was there at graduation.
Yeah.
And then he went over to his SOI school, It's like, oh, I was there for that graduation, And and then he was deployed, and then it's like you can't call, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Even though we had gotten that training beforehand. And I think the hardest part was because he was infantry, we couldn't tell anybody that he was leaving. I had another coworker, her son was in the Air Force. Oh, my son's deploying. Oh, it's so sad. And everybody just went around her and I had to be quiet.
Yeah.
Don't say a word,
Yeah.
Because it was like, I didn't want to put my son in danger
Yeah.
or any of the brothers, so it's like, you don't say anything. Not that they tell the parent
Yeah.
anyway
Yeah.
when they're actually going, but yeah.
So yeah.
And just waiting until you're allowed to write a letter. They have an address, you can write a letter, because it's all about that little bit of communication that you actually can get.
What years was he? Did he
2012 to
2012?
2016.
Okay. Yeah, see, it was a little different. Like my era, like I said, we went over doing the initial push, right? So it was different. It was all, we didn't see it, but it was all on TV. You know what I mean? Like the pushing when Bush said I declare war and all of that stuff. And like I said, we didn't see any of that stuff. So for me, like I said, my parents had no idea. My uncles were telling my mom, "Oh, he's fine. He's not up there. He's not." You know what I mean? So they had no idea what was going on, and it wasn't fine. You know what I mean? Like it was a real live war going on. And like I said, from my side, being over there during that time where we went through, and we're not stationary, and we're not getting those letters, you know what I mean, and we're not getting that mail, and that real, like, just that time of not knowing what's going on in the world. For me, it was a lot different. But like I said, on the other side, as a parent, I couldn't imagine, you know what I mean, what that must have been like for you, where you're watching the news, you know what I'm saying, the phone calls, and you watch those movies, and you see those guys walk up to that door, you know what I mean, and without them even saying anything, you kind of already know what's going on. But just having to prepare for that, like I said, I don't think as a parent, like I said, I don't know, that's tough, and I get it for a mother more than a father, that they would feel that way, and that's how my mom was. They told me, your mom, they when I got back, they were like, your mom was losing her head, you know what I mean, the whole time you were over there, because she just didn't know.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like fear of the unknown, because you don't know.
Yeah.
That's why it's like huge if you can write a letter.
Yeah.
Or if you get a letter back, it's like, oh yeah, he's alive.
Yeah, it is.
Well, the Marine Corps has got they're a really small community.
Yeah.
And so we had a parents group.
Okay.
And so we had that on Facebook. So we were able to talk to each other. Oh, I heard from my son. And it was like, okay, good. He's in the same group.
Yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's what they did a good job of, right? Like during the initial invasion in 2004, to where you said your son was in 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, I would imagine that they came up with different support groups and all of that then, because then it's at that point, it's almost an 8-year, you know what I'm saying, thing going on overseas, to where they were able to build those more support groups and kind of know what's going on, as opposed to, like I said, where my mom's like, I don't know, what's third ID is all I know, you know what I mean? And you're seeing third ID and all of this stuff happening.
Well, and especially like when you went in and then going out there, your training was like totally different than like what my son got, because they knew what was going in, and so they trained them for that.
Yeah.
Because they knew what to expect, where we knew it, they didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was something I was just going to bring up is, when Mike went in, he was the initial invasion, and a lot of his stories, well, not a lot, his stories are a little bit different than, my stories, because when I was in, I went there 07, 08. And so we had established bases and stuff like that. Granted,
they had to build them. He was
we didn't even build them. We destroyed the country, and then somebody else came and built. Like, that's what we did.
When we were there, our focus was hearts and minds, and it was also reconstructing infrastructure and stuff like that. So it was also a different mission, the invasion to trying to stabilize a country
Mhm.
is you're on two different missions there.
Right.
And you look at 2012 to 2016, going overseas during that time as well, I can imagine was a little bit different, maybe a little more better laid out with the communication piece, because I couldn't imagine, it wasn't easy for him to get off a 16-hour shift and be like, oh, I'm going to call my mom.
Yeah.
Whereas me,
Right.
if I would get off a 16-hour mission, and as long as nothing happened within my platoon or any of the other platoons, like nobody died, we didn't get blown up, we didn't get into a firefight or anything like that, you could go to we had a makeshift USO where we had phones, we had computers, and we were able to engage with our families and friends that way.
Mhm.
Yeah,
How
we
often were
didn't.
you able to do that?
Um, Quite often,
Roughly.
it depended on like a lot of different things. Again, if there was a firefighter or somebody had passed away, or if something had occurred, they did limit cell phone use. So like when I was involved in a VBID, a vehicle borne IED, which is a improvised explosive device. Um, when I was blown up by that, I went to the hospital and I was able to call my ex-wife, and I was able to call my dad and say, "Hey, look, I'm okay. I'm still here." And I couldn't imagine, the
Yeah, it was.
firefights you guys went through.
Yeah, there was no calling immediate. Like it was, like I said, we didn't. I don't recall, but I don't remember even getting on the phone until after we got back to Kuwait from Iraq.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It could have been, you know what I mean, where we did, but it was, and even then, like, even if they did have phones, the lines to be able to talk on those were so long. You know what I mean? Because everybody hadn't heard anything from home. It was a lot different. And you didn't want to, you know what I mean? It's hot. You got on all this gear, like you got to wait. It's like, I'm good. I'll keep doing these letters for now, like I said, but and then they were prioritized, you know what I mean? Like who needed to talk, you know what I'm saying? What? I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids, you know what I mean? I knew there was guys that were married and had kids. Let them talk on the
Right.
phone. You know what I mean? Like they need that a little bit more than I did at the time. But yeah, it was none of that. Like we didn't none of that at all. And like I said, it was just it's amazing to hear the different, like I said, perspectives of it. Just because when I went, like he said, when he went, when your son went, it was completely different, couple years apart, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Completely different things that was going on.
Mhm.
That's why when I hear some of the Josh's stuff, when he said that like the IEDs and the vehicles and all of that stuff, I don't know how those guys dealt with that. Like I said, because that had to be tough to be able to drive out you know what I'm saying, every day. And you're not just looking for Iraqis, you're looking on the side of the road for explosives, you know what I'm saying, everywhere you go. And that just had to be a different type of feeling. Like I said, where we went through, and it was just push through. You know what I mean? Just do what you got to do, and go and do that. And I think not even just that. I think the perspective of being a private, right? To where now you're not a private. Like if I would have stayed in, not being a private, to probably like an E5 or E6 or something like that. To now I'm in a leadership position, to where now that's a different type of dynamic as well, where I'm
Right.
just taking orders to now I'm giving orders. You
Right.
know what I mean? So it's the perspective of that is something that I don't think a lot of people necessarily think about, you know what I mean? But it is like for your son, how long did he went from 2012 to 2016. So he went a couple times, and he went in initially probably as a lower ranking, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then to a
To
point where,
probably Lance Corporal.
yeah,
Right. He got out as a corporal, right? Is that the next step up?
You-
They're like, we're Army. We don't know.
yeah, it's,
I
it's
think it goes. You have a private, and then you have a corporal and a lance corporal, and then you have a sergeant,
yeah,
staff sergeant, and then that's where Gunny comes in, right?
I think, I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Then it was Lance.
Yeah, that'll be a question. What do you know? You know about that?
Look it up.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna even try to get it.
Yeah.
I know private, PV2, PFC, specialist, sergeant. Well, specialist, you
or
can be a
corporal.
corporal. But you know, if you had your corporal status,
It was weird to get a corporal. It was,
sometimes you were a brown noser.
yeah,
That's how you got your corporal status.
yeah.
But no, there was also, you know, E4s that were really good at their job and really good at being a team leader. They just didn't have the points to make E5 at that time, so they did give them corporal, and that fought. You know, there's a difference between a specialist and a corporal.
Yeah.
You're considered an NCO,
Leadership,
non-commissioned officer, once you become a corporal. Whereas an E4, you're a specialist. You're almost there, but not quite. And you know, it's a pretty interesting dynamic when you have corporals and specialists in the same room. One's like, NCO, and we're like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's like, I outrank you in time, bro. But you know, it's
Did you guys have nicknames for the officers?
some of them.
Yeah. We didn't really
Like overall the
Uh,
name or no?
Oh no, well, butter bar. So if you were a butter bar, meaning you were a first lieutenant, and then it goes from first lieutenant to second lieutenant, and then commander. So is, you know, the butter bars would always get slack from like the platoons because they're platoon leaders, and then you have a platoon sergeant, and you know, it was kind of fun when you're back in
Garrison.
the state,
Yeah.
Garrison, and you hear all the stories, all the stereotypes of don't let your LT get you lost, you'll end up in
Yep.
a swamp,
Yep.
it's all true.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Oh man.
I didn't know there was a swamp in the middle of Kentucky, but I can tell you right now, there's a swamp in the middle of
Man.
Kentucky, and an LT guided me through that. So,
Yep. We had
Yeah.
one. We had one that was. We had an issue with the radio, and I believe I could be wrong, but the lieutenant that lost the radio or wasn't there or something, kind of played a part in that. Like if you lose a radio, like you're out there, like nobody's going home. You know what I mean? This was in Garrison too. This was in like a field training, so it wasn't Garrison. It was like a field training, a mini field exercise that we were doing, and the radio was lost. And like I said, you lose a radio, bro. Everybody's not going anywhere. We're all hands on deck. You know what I mean? We're searching all over for this radio. And the one guy who wasn't there, I think he was getting married, he was gone, whatever it was, he ended up leaving and going back. And it was like, what the heck, bro? And I'm not sure. I think he may have had something to do with misplacing the radio. So it was bad for him. So the rep that they get sometimes was, well, they deserved it, you know what I mean? But I give those officers a lot of credit because, like I said, back in Garrison, we mess around with them. They're pencil pushers and all of that stuff. But when it came down to it, like I said, those guys they did a lot of stuff. Like I said, that's when you realize that they earned those stripes. You know what I'm saying? That they got as well because they were the brains behind the
All that's
operations
needed.
that happened. So,
Yeah.
yep,
Oh, it's needed for sure.
yep.
Oh yeah. It was, and going the other thing that I would say that's a little bit different than when Mike went opposed to me, you know, we were able to establish, you know, CHUs, which are container housing units, and they look like the back of, you know, a trailer for a semi truck, and you'd fit anywhere from 4 to 8 service members in one. You'd have bunk beds and stuff like that. And I remember I was at JSS Love, and we had CHUs that came from a major base. They brought them down to us because the company that I was with at the time, they built this base just from the ground up. It was a old blown out like paper factory, and they cleaned it all out. They patched up the the blown up parts, and that's where our TOC was, that's where our radio control was, that's where our DFAC was, our USO, and then we had, outside of that, we had these chews that were all lined up. Ours came from the Air Force K9 unit. And now you would think that Air Force soldiers were in there. No, the canines had their own chews.
Oh my god!
Like literally, like if you're in the Air Force, man, even the dogs get treated really well. So I was like, oh man. So we got these. Right?
That's what I hear.
I was like, maybe I should have joined the Air Force, and that's what I tell my kids now. And they're like, "Oh, I'm going to join the military." I'm like, "Join the Air Force." 'Cause, man,
Listen, I know one to knock any branch whatsoever. Shout out to my cousin Tim Barber, who is Air Force and made a life of it. I have got a cousin, Mike Hannon, 20 years U.S. Navy. So I give credit to anybody that goes to any branch. It's all disruptive to a normal life, no matter how you really look at it. But yes, totally agree. I talked to my cousin Tim, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man. There's times where you're like, what are we doing today? Shooting pool." Oh, okay. I had a friend who was U.S. Army. I grew up with on the south side of Chicago, and he told me, and I asked him what was some of the biggest education that you utilized when you were out there in the shed that they taught you. And he was like, it's not what I learned from them. He's like, from growing up on 55th and Kedzie, being aware of your surroundings at all times is what that was. And I bring up programming is because he kept that programming, right, when he went in. And he told me that coming out, it took him about a year, maybe two, to kind of come back to somewhat normal on deprogramming. And I'm sure that was the same for you. I'm not going to ask you guys that if that's sensitive to you.
No. So to bring it back to that conversation of how long it took me a while. I came back and I was infantry, hua, you have this, I don't want to say God complex, but you have a God complex. Like you're untouchable. You just came out from the fire, and you didn't come out unscathed. Nope. But but
you're still looking for the shit,
still.
no matter what.
Exactly.
Right? And so you're at a pace. You're still moving at that pace, right?
And so it took me quite a while to get out of this idea of not only having that infantry mentality, even though I had reclassed to MP, I still had that infantry. Even as an MP, I got told I was probably the worst MP because I had this mentality of, I didn't pull people over for California stops. I didn't pull people over for going 5 over. I did pull over a sheriff in Kentucky for going 10 over in a 20 and on base in a residential area. For sure did that because they should have been following the rules.
Right.
But I wasn't out there to get people like that. Yeah. And it was I had a different aspect from it. I went from
mindset was different.
Right. And it's like, I knew what I went through when I came back home. I wasn't about to pull somebody over, at 6:30 because I know he's running late to PT or morning formation, or she, and they don't need that hassle of also getting a ticket. Yeah. Because now they got to report. They're going to be reporting to their first line of team leaders, and then the team leader is going to go to squad leader, and the squad leader is going to go to because everybody wants to know where that one person is. Mm-hmm. And so someone's got to answer for that. So I'm not going to sit there and pull them over and be like, oh, by the way, here you go.
Right.
Now you're, instead of getting a slap on the wrist and maybe, you have to clean the latrines twice, for a whole week by yourself. Now you're looking at Article 15s, and that really takes away your money and stuff like that. So I had a different mentality.
You chose your battles differently than everybody else in that.
And that's why it's like hearing you say all of that, right? And it's just like you say, how long did it take you to deprogram? We're still programmed.
Oh,
like we're still kind of programmed when it comes to certain things. Like some of it, like the the hard stuff may not be there, you know what I mean? Where it's just like but there's still some of that there, like I said, where it's tough to still to go to a restaurant and just sit with my back towards any door, even sitting in here, you know what I mean? Like it's things like that. Yeah, yeah.
Aware.
Yeah, and it's that's what I mean. Like it's being so aware of that stuff, larger crowds, different things like that, to where you're still triggered by certain things, you know what I mean, and all of that stuff, to where you don't fully. I don't think we'll ever be completely.
No, I think it's part of you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's your character that has been developed
Yep,
coming out.
yep,
But yeah, I think more or less, maybe I should have been words a little more wise. But yeah, the way the pace moved,
yeah,
and to
yeah.
where you finally were able to go a little bit, go, all right, calm the fuck down. You gotta, you know,
You find I find
know?
myself doing that a lot. Hey,
Yeah.
you're safe.
Right.
You know, my wife. It's funny because I scan everybody. Even to this day, I look everybody up and down. I'm looking at their waist to see if they have any firearms on there, concealed carry, anything like that. My wife used to get mad at me. She's like, "Why you keep on looking at everybody? Why are you looking at her? Why you?" I'm like, "I'm not looking at them for any of their attributes. I'm looking to see if they got a weapon. They're gonna take my attribute, you know." So,
Well, I think with that, with you rephrasing it like that, I think it's more so when I'm around guys like Josh. You know what I mean? Where we work together on a daily basis, and like I said, there's things sometimes that may feel like they're this serious, but having that battle there, or you know what I'm saying, somebody there that's it's like, nah, bro, like this ain't that. You know what I mean? Like I think for me, it was finding that community of guys and girls who kind of understood it. And it like I said, that's what keeps me on that path now, where it's like it's not that. You know what I mean? Once I was able to find that and tap more into it, like I said, now I still do certain things, you know what I mean? But the initial deprogramming, like I said, it took years.
Yeah.
It took years, you know what I mean? And it took a lot of relationships from me for people that just didn't understand. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's not their fault, you know what I mean? But it was that. And then I would also say, like, just having kids and growing up. Like a lot of it was just growing up. We a lot of our stories, we did this when we were young, we were kids still. But it takes any kid a time to adjust, right? Like, you know what I mean? From deprogramming how you were when you were a kid to being an adult and doing all of those things. But with the military, it's a little bit more intense because of the things that, like I said, that we had to experience. But it's the same for guys. Like I said, I have friends that grew up in the streets too. You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same thing for them, to where I think you were saying something about somebody that you knew, and you know how they were, and they probably shouldn't have been here, and they're here now, and they're a lot more calm now. And I think it's just life experience sometimes humbles you more than anything. So yeah, it took a while, but having guys like Josh and being able to, you know, sit around like this and just have those conversations, it helps. Like it does help. And that's one of the things, like I said, is touching those younger veterans a lot earlier, so they can deprogram a lot quicker.
You gotta fill that void real quick.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That way, it's like you get help faster.
Yep.
Instead of waiting for the moment.
Yep.
Right? Unalive is not great.
Yep.
And that's the word we use.
Yeah.
Right.
I can remember it.
I couldn't be more proud. First of all, congratulations to all three of you. More proud of all three of you. That's the accomplishments to where you're at today. I had different tragedy in my life. You know, I didn't serve for our country. I do that in a different way. But yeah, there's been loss, there's been hardship, and there's been trying times, and there's good times, right? But I had to learn at a young age that for every time there's a negative, it's just a new direction.
Yep.
That's all it really is. You got to find the positive for whatever that negative is feeding you, and able to move forward. You know, Chris is probably one of the toughest women I've ever met. You know, ex-cop, 2 sons, and one was sick for a while. The other one,
We've got 4.
four sons. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Will you talk about the 2? So I'm gonna say to all four, I apologize, but she only talks about two of you. Okay. So I'm telling you.
Which two? You didn't even say, so she can switch it up. She can switch it up. Yeah, you can switch it up. Yeah.
No.
Which two
I mean, listen, first of all, just being a mom in itself is a job. That's 100% hands down a hard job. And to go through what you've gone through to where now you're like, hey, I need to be part of this organization that helps that. And serving in our own streets that you did, my hat's off to you for sure. That's fantastic to where you have ended up today. And I know Jesus is coming to your life a little bit and has helped you out with that as well. That's fantastic. And I faith. And Josh, you have such a creative mind. And I've met your wife and she is phenomenal. So you are a blessed man. And the fact that you come up with these ideas in the gaming world and everything else. And I mean, listen, we're like two 10-year-olds talking about gaming, right? That's how it kind of comes out to be. And how you just say that you wanted to do something and then fruition happens, So you're definitely an accomplished young man at 38.
Thank you.
So Josh's nickname, Josh, you want to tell him or you want me to tell him?
They call me Super Vet.
Super vet.
Super vet.
Okay.
So
let's hear that story.
So it came from it started off as something derogatory. This individual is not happy with the decisions that I was making, and they had said, "Oh, what do you think you are? Some kind of super vet?" And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, maybe. I don't know, And then Mike picked it up, and he was like, "Oh, super vet," and we made these masks, and what the mask was supposed to represent, what you feel like the
others,
how others see you and stuff like that. So I made mine look like Captain America a little bit, and then instead of an A, I put SV, and then on the inside I put
how you view yourself,
how I view myself, the feelings that I have.
Awesome.
And it was really funny. And that since then, Mike and some of the other guys, they run, hey, Superman's in the building.
It's to your point, Cappuccino, where you said all those incredible things about him. There's nothing this guy wouldn't do for a veteran. Not for a human, but especially a veteran. Like, he will go walk miles to help somebody. Yeah, you know what I mean? So when I say that, it's a compliment. I don't say it in a direct, you know what I mean, the bad way, because he's got his hands into everything, but it's for the right, for the right reasons why he does it. So that's why I call him Super Vet. So that's Super Vet.
Well,
right
you've all done such great, amazing things, and Michael, I even with you, you're also Super Vet. I don't know what your nickname is, but there's going to have to be one. Because, I mean, listen, you say that about him, but I see the same in you.
I appreciate that.
I can see you going the distance for one person because they need it, especially.
And he has. He really does. I mean, we get veterans in, and sometimes as peer support or even like in case management, there's been times where I've had to bounce ideas off of Mike because I'm like, look, I'm kind of lost. I don't know where to go with this. And he's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And that's the camaraderie and that battle buddy type thing that we have at Veterans Path to Hope with one another. Is if I don't know the answer, I'm not just gonna give up. Just like if Mike doesn't know the answer, Mike is in every office. Hey, you know this?
Exactly.
Hey, and
you ping pong.
Oh,
back and forth. That's great. Hey, Nick and I have something similar to that. I'll say red, and he'll be like, "No, it's clearly blue," and I'll be like, "Shut up, Nick." And then I'll be like,
"You're colorblind."
That works. I love it. Watching the brotherhood work in front of you, is pretty amazing. So we're running out of time, but I want to let everybody know.
We'll be back. We'll all be back.
Absolutely. So stay tuned. Looking at 3 hosts now for Roger That Chronicles moving forward, which is fantastic. I'm excited about it. And stay tuned for some live gaming here coming into the near future with Josh. That'd be a lot of fun. I know Mike will be here. Are you gaming in that?
I will probably be gaming. If it's Madden, I may do a little bit of Madden. But we'll see. I'll definitely have some real life Madden players doing that. So
I'm working on a local wing place to donate the wings.
okay.
Get some wings in here, you know,
Yeah.
do it up, make the place smell real bad before everybody leaves.
Yeah.
You know.
You got one bathroom too, right? Oh,
yeah.
that's dangerous.
Down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we send our.
That's the VIP. We'll do the VIP down there. Okay, yeah. All right.
Oh yeah.
The baseball field's got porta potties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta eat to them. Eat to 'em. I got stories about that.
Right
Trust
out
me.
the baseball field. Kids are sliding the home the next day.
What is that smell? That's not mud.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. I am Drew Cappuccino.
Josh.
Chris?
And Mike.
Until next time, don't be afraid. If you see a vet that needs help, reach out, put your hand out. It's okay. See you next time.